What does economic growth actually mean for ordinary Indonesian? Does a rise in GDP automatically lift people out of poverty, or does it depend on how that growth happens and how we measure its impact? Hello, I'm Jessica with number 22000101171, and in this video I will explore this question by reviewing two revealing research papers. First, we will look at structural change and regional economic growth in Indonesia to understand the engine of growth, the shifting sectors, and uneven development across our province. Then we will turn to poverty dynamic in Indonesia to see how that growth translates or doesn't into real poverty reduction for household. By putting these two studies side by side, we can see the crucial link between national economic structure and individual well-being. Let's take a closer look. One is based on the research paper Structural Change and Regional Economic Growth in Indonesia by Adriansyah and Nurwanda and Rifai 2021. We can see the research background in this paper is for decades. Economic development theory has highlighted a structural change, the shift of research from low productivity sector like agriculture to high productivity ones like manufacturing and service as a key driver of economic growth. Countries like China and India have shown how this transformation fuels regional development. However, Indonesia's experience remains understudied, especially at the provincial level. Despite being an archipelago with diverse economy, previous to the studies in Indonesia, regional growth largely ignored the specific impact of structural change or use oversimplified metrics. This research gap is critical because understanding whether province grow due to worker moving to richer sector or due to productivity improvement within sector is essential for effective regional economic policy. Okay, the next is research objective. The study aims to measure and analyze the pattern of structural change across Indonesian 13 provinces from 2005 to 2018, investigate the empirical relationship between structural change and regional economic growth in Indonesia, determine whether growth is driven more by the relocation of labor across sector or by increasing productivity within sectors. The next one is methodology. The authors employ a quantitative approach using panel data from 13 provinces 2005 to 2018. Measuring structural change, they use the shift share method to decompose labor productivity growth into three components. First is within effect, growth from productivity gains within a sector. Second, static effect, growth from labor moving to sector with initially higher productivity. The last one is dynamic effect, growth from labor moving to sector that are also experience productivity growth. Model analysis, they use dynamic panel regression model system GMM to test the impact of the three structural change component on provincial GDP per capita growth while controlling for investment and education. This analysis reveals that Indonesia is experiencing a slowdown in its structural transformation, characterized primarily by a direct shift from agriculture to service, largely bypassing robust industrialization, which has diminished since the Asian financial crisis. This transition is highly uneven across the region, with Sulawesi province leading in productivity growth, while research rich are like Riau and East Kalimantan underperform. Critically, the study identifies that productivity gain within existing sector, the within effect is the solid, statistically significant driver or regional growth. The relocation of labor across sectors saw no significant positive impact, a consequence of the dominant movement into service sector like trade and government, which often have lower productivity than manufacturing, thereby failing to accelerate overall economic growth. This study demonstrates that structural change influence Indonesia's regional growth, but not through the conventional path of labor relocation. Rather than merely shifting works across sectors, growth is primarily driven by boosting productivity within each existing sector. As a result, generating industrialization policies are inadequate. Effective economic strategy must instead be tailored to provincial context, focusing on identifying and changing the specific driver of within sector productivity. The next paper is Poverty Dynamic in Indonesia, Empirical Evidence from Three Main Approach. Despite Indonesia is programmed in reducing poverty over the past decades, the pace of poverty reduction has slowed and income inequality has risen. Poverty remains a dynamic issue, with households frequently moving in and out of poverty due to economic shock or improvement. Previous studies on poverty dynamic in Indonesia have produced inconsistent findings, largely because they rely on different methodological approach, primarily the spell approach, which often overlook the depth and severity of poverty. This creates ambiguity for policy makes in design effective poverty alleviation strategies. The study aims to examine poverty dynamic in Indonesia by applying three analytical approaches: spell approach, the component approach using the FGT index, and the EDE poverty gap approach to assess how methodological and parameter choice shape conclusion about whether poverty is predominantly chronic or transient. The analysis seeks to provide evidence-based insight to guide policymakers in selecting appropriate measurement tools and designing effective targeted intervention. The analysis is based on household panel data from the Indonesian National Socio-Economic Survey, or SUSENAS, for 2008 and 2010. Three methodological approaches are applied. The spell approach, which classifies a household based on whether their per capita expenditure fall below the poverty line in one or both periods. The component approach, which decomposes poverty using the FGT index across parameters of alpha equals 0, alpha equals 1, and alpha equals 2 to capture poverty incidence, gap, and severity, and the EDE poverty gap approach, which build on the component method by accounting for inequality aversion and relaxing the assumption of constant household expenditure over time. The finding revealed that the spell approach significantly underestimates chronic poverty, identifying only 6.7% of households as chronically poor, representing about 28.28% of total poverty. while transient poverty dominant at 71.72%. Conversely, the component approach demonstrates sensitivity to parameter selection at alpha equals 0, measuring incidence. Chronic poverty accounts for 11.07% of households, or approximately 47% of total poverty. Whereas at alpha equal 1 and alpha equal 2 severity, chronic poverty rise to 63% and 54% of total poverty respectively. The more comprehensive EDE approach revealed that poverty is overwhelmingly chronic, constituting 92% of total poverty, with 66% of this chronic component driven by the cause of inequality. Significant provincial disparities persist, with less developed regions such as Papua exhibiting the high rate of chronic poverty. The analysis demonstrates that the characterization of poverty in Indonesia as chronic or transient is highly dependent on the methodological approach and parameters chosen, while simpler methods suggest transient poverty is dominant. Approach that account for poverty depth and inequality reveal chronic poverty to be more prevalent. This underscores necessity for complementary strategies, long-term structural investment in human capital and inequality reduction alongside short-term social safety nets. Policymakers must therefore employ measurement tools that capture the severity and distributional aspect of poverty to design truly effective and equitable intervention. In summary, these two studies provide a powerful two-part diagnosis for Indonesian development. Together, they point to one essential truth: sustained inclusive development requires smart, tailored policies that address both how the economy transforms and how we measure and tackle human hardship. I'm Jessica. I hope this review has been useful. Thank you. Oh my god. Bye.